There are three things I always touch point on.
The basics are you're buying in today's market something in the future.
So that's why the legal advice is very important.
You know, one of the biggest surprises I find...
Is there any red flag?
Just to warn everybody.
The unknown factor is high.
To me, it makes no sense.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Welcome to the Stellar Talk Show. It's your platform powered by Experts Insights. We're here to explore the questions and topics that matters most to you, whether it's achieving homeownership, investing, or elevating your lifestyle. Let us know what you want to hear and we'll bring industry experts to dive deep and provide the answers you deserve. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share this podcast with anyone who could benefit from these valuable insights. Let's dive in and elevate together.
Hi and welcome to Stellar Talk Show. It's your platform powered by Experts Insights. Today we are joining with Joseph Berljawsky, who's a lawyer, co-founder and managing partner of Property Law Firm. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Before we dive deep into today's topics, Joseph, why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself and why property law?
Well, I've been a real estate lawyer for about 10 years. In that time we've done, I can't even say how many tens of thousands of transactions. And you know, we founded the firm because we think that it's important to focus on doing a real estate transaction well, and that's just our mission. Do it better and do it the best that we can. It's such a significant part of people's lives when they're buying a house, and yeah, our mission is to elevate the closing process to match the significance of that transaction.
That's amazing. That's a great mission to have. So today's topic, we're going to dive a little bit deep into the new builds and pre-construction. So with the boldest mortgage reforms that came into play on December 15th, and the budget 2024, the federal government of Canada is actually focusing on delivering fairness for every generation by including nearly 4 million new builds coming into play. I just want to break it down to everybody what it entails for them when it comes to purchasing a pre-construction home or a new build.
So when you're buying pre-construction, you're buying in advance. So the basics are you're buying in today's market something in the future. And I always thought that's a very important point for people to understand. Because the whole idea is that you're going to get a deal now if the prices go up.
That's true.
But if you're buying, one of the problems that we've seen in Toronto in particular is that that's not what ended up happening. There was all these crazy high prices for pre-construction, and then the market went down. That's completely the opposite of what you want in a pre-construction situation. You're always trying to get a deal now because one of the main things is when you're buying pre-construction, there's a lot of unknowns.
That's true.
Whether it's fees, whether it's timelines, whether it's you know, is the property value going to go up? So you know, that's what you should be thinking about when you first start out on your journey.
That's true. So when you actually compare buying a pre-construction and a resale home, the unknown factor is high on the pre-construction, in other words. So that's why the legal advice is very important, just to make sure that you're very informed in making that purchase. Like normally when my clients come to me and ask me about, hey, let's buy a pre-construction, there are three things I always touch point on. First is like, what's the goal behind the purchase? Are you going to be the end user, or is it going to be an investment property? The second is the location, because the location plays a big part on return on your investment, right? And third is choosing your builder or the developer wisely. So when it comes to choosing your builder or developer wisely, what are some advice that you would like to input?
So that's probably one of the most important things. Not all builders are the same.
That's true.
By a long shot. So it's important to do your research and to see what else they've built. If there's reviews you can read online, Google it. Definitely do your research into it. Because one of the things that builders tend to do is you tend to go into these like centers and they make it seem like a store. Like it's not real estate. You're buying a product. But that's just sales. It's still real estate, and all the things that you worry about in real estate are still true when you're buying pre-construction. So it's important not to get kind of caught up
lost in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of builders out there in today's market who's giving a lot of incentives, buy downs on the pricing, and also like cashbacks and things like that. But it's apart from all that, the main focus should be on the reputation of the builder and how well they have done in the past and the history. So definitely do the research. Find the best builder or the developer that you want to invest your money with.
Yeah.
Right?
And remember, it's a real estate deal. You're buying real estate, you're negotiating a price. Same as if you're buying from a seller. Builders are just a seller, and they make it seem like it has to be this price, and they'll give you a discount on the price. That's just a fallacy, right?
Yes.
You're negotiating a real estate deal.
That is true. That is true. So I want to also talk about the when you are buying the pre-construction project, the agreement of purchase and sale, the APS you call it, is like this thick.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information, but in reality, when you are in the sales center with the developer, you actually don't go through every single page, every single word to capture like what are the essence or like what it really means and what are you agreeing to. Like in other words, you're only focusing on the down payment and the incentives, closing date, and the floor plan.
Yeah,
right.
Everybody talks about the finishes. I got all the finishes. So what are the actual terms? In the contract?
Exactly. What are some of the key pointers on the APS that you have seen that buyers overlook?
So, when I do a review of an APS, I almost always start off the same way. It's relatively typical for a builder APS. And what that means is it's relatively one-sided. It's these agreements are made to protect the builders.
Yes.
So that's important to keep in mind. And there's a lot of like standard builder stuff that they put in there that I think that most people should be mindful of. For example, builders always have broad rights to change design things. And some people think, okay, so that means my counter is going to be black instead of marble. That's not what I mean. I mean they'll move doors so that you might think you have a door to your garage and now you suddenly don't, or balconies now no longer exist. Walls and things like that. Ceiling heights. You think you paid for a 10-foot ceiling and you get an 8-foot ceiling, and they have every right to do that. So that would be an example of something that's sort of standard, and also probably not negotiable. So there's a lot of that. I'd say another big one is if the buyer defaults, the builders have pretty broad rights to cancel deals, which is very different than a regular purchase and sale where it's kind of, both sides have similar rights.
Yeah.
And then there's the stuff that we can negotiate. So that's, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the Schedule B of the Tarion addendums that lists, or it's required to list all of the additional costs that the buyer can incur, and you can follow the schedule. It references all the points in the agreement where those extra charges are, but those are things like those infamous developer fees, development fees, park levies. A lot of the time they charge for hydro connection and which I always thought was funny because, are they selling you the building without electricity? Does it include a roof?
Yeah, no, but they actually have a price tag for everything, right?
So often.
Yeah, so often, and it's quite surprising because some of the buyers in the pre-construction they're not aware about all these because they don't take the time to review the APS or agreement of purchase and sale, and it is all a surprise when it comes to closing.
Yes.
So when it comes to that big document, like it's about this thick, where are some of the these information that they should be paying attention to when it comes to like the hidden costs, the amendment rights, and what the closing is going to look like?
I'll say there's also a Schedule A, and that one lists all of the things that the builder can do to get out of the deal, like to end the deal before it even starts. So like if they decide they don't have the financing that they wanted, they can say, here's your deposit back, we're done here. So that, you know, is an important one to just be aware of this, the how far along in the development cycle the builder is. So if you're buying really, really early before they've even put a shovel in the ground, just know that there might just not be a deal and they can totally get out of it.
I just want to ask you, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to ask you, in a situation like that, what are the guidelines in protecting their client's down payment?
So there's Tarion. Tarion
Yes.
protects your deposits, but that's about it. You don't get any, you know, in real interest or anything like that.
Interest or anything like that. No, it's just like, you know, it just protects your deposit and make sure in case if something like that happens, you are refunded.
Yeah. Up to a certain amount, and there's like, you know, a few small print things that you should ask your lawyer about when the time comes.
Okay. That's good to know. And when it comes to the APS one more time, is there any red flags that people should be looking at when they are reviewing the APS?
Yeah, so everybody, your first step is to go to the Schedule B of the Tarion Addendum and look at those charges. And sometimes they're worded very inclusively. Like the builder can charge you if they, you know, decide that they want to. So obviously that would be something you want to go back to them and say, listen, that's not fair. And depending on the demand and depending on the builder, they'll come back to you and they'll maybe give you a cap on those things. That to me is always the best solution.
Yeah.
Fine. You want to charge for everything, as long as you limit it to $20,000 or whatever you feel comfortable with, at least you have some certainty going in. You'll probably get charged that full $20,000.
Yeah.
But at least it's not going to be $80,000.
Yeah. So you have like a maximum amount that it may be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That to me is is like the first stop.
Yeah.
And then the second big one, less these days, but just because it's not true today doesn't mean it's going to be not true in 5 years. Those assignment clauses, or amendments, or however the builder kind of sets up their agreements. An assignment is where you basically can sell the deal to somebody else before it closes.
Yes.
Or even during occupancy, which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
But it's very important to have the conditions for allowing that clear in the agreement.
That's true.
Builders all want to keep all the power, so their default is going to be they have to approve it and they have complete say. And so, like I said, depending on the situation and your negotiating power, you want to try to get some of that, either a list of things that they can't unreasonably deny you if you've met those things, or even better, an unconditional right by the buyer to assign.
That's true. That's true.
And again, it's just mitigating your future risk that if, you know, in 5 years you're not in a position to close, you have a way out instead of having to give up your deposit and get sued.
That's true. That's good information that you're sharing there. So that's why the 10-day cooling off period is very important for the buyer. So I know in 1998 it was first introduced by the Condominium Act, but right now for the condominiums at that time. But right now they have expanded it to freehold pre-construction homes as well in 2024.
Yeah.
The importance behind that is to take your time to sit down with a lawyer and go through that thick document that you just agreed on the purchase to make sure that you are protected on your end as well.
I mean, the truth is, it depends. You know, you get these situations where there's a lineup out the door and you have to sign on the dotted line and then take it to the lawyer.
Yes.
Luckily, these days, that's not so true, right? So sometimes now they'll give you the agreement in advance to negotiate. That's always better because then you can walk into the sales center with actual advice, and it's always the salespeople that are more likely to negotiate with you. Like they're looking for a commission. You know, they get a commission for every sale, so they're more likely to give you those concessions.
Yes.
After the fact, when you're in your 10-day cooling off period, it's very important to review the agreement during that period and go see a lawyer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But 10 days goes by quickly. You've got to get your lawyer to take a look. That's a day or two. And then you got to negotiate. Are you going to go back to the sales center to negotiate? Are they going to give you the runaround and go to their lawyer? Is the lawyer going to respond in those 10 days? What do you do if it's day 9 and their lawyer hasn't responded to your lawyer's request? Do you just like go ahead? It creates a bit of ambiguity. So again, if you can do it in advance and get a copy of the agreement, that's better. And I think in today's market, that's something that's actually possible.
Yes.
That we're seeing more frequently.
That's true. And also, like, I need to say, like, the builders, they're giving a lot of incentives and free assignment for an example, and capped development charges. We need to make sure those things that is displayed on their marketing material is also reflecting on the agreement as well.
100%.
Yeah.
If it's not in the agreement, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Just because they say it to you and it's not there for any reason, could be a human mistake, but we still need to make sure it actually gets added because that's what you're agreeing to.
I've gotten into this argument with builders 100 times. Client shows up, I have a free assignment. Oh, it's not in your agreement. No, I got this flyer. I said, not a legally binding contract.
I know. Many conversations surrounding that, and so it's very important to get that advice from your realtor and also especially from your lawyer when it comes to reviewing the document, sitting down with you and going through it in detail to understand your rights and also your responsibilities in the purchase.
Yeah. I'll give you one more trick also. The lawyers are great at giving you the advice. They're not good at negotiating.
That's true.
And it's not that lawyers are bad negotiators. It's just that lawyers take positions. And then their lawyer has to take a position.
That's true.
Versus, I think in more of a sales center environment with your agent and their agent, you can negotiate a little bit.
Yes.
So I think you're going to have a lot more success in getting some of those things than if you have your lawyer do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. If your agent says, just let your lawyer do it, I think the agent is not doing you a service. I think it's better if they go back and help you.
That's true. It's very important that the realtor or the salesperson is holding their hand throughout the process, not only when you're signing the APS, but getting amendments done, if needed, and also making sure you're prepared for the closing when the closing comes closer. So it's a long relationship for you to have with your realtor from the beginning till the end, till you get your keys. Most definitely. Yeah. And I want to also ask you, Joseph, so let's say hypothetically there was a situation for a client that within that 10 days cooling off period, for some reason he was not happy with the review that he had with the lawyer, and now he wants to step back and he doesn't want to proceed with the purchase. What are the consequences or what are the rights that he can exercise there?
You just let them know. They give you back your deposit if you gave it. There's sometimes a form they make you sign, a cancellation form or whatever. But you can just walk away.
That's good. And as you mentioned before, just in case there was a delay in one party responding within that 10 days period, and if it overlaps that time, is there a way to get that extended, or is there a consequences there?
Yeah, often they'll agree to extend it.
Okay.
Often that's an email chain or something like that. I mean, it's not ideal. Better to get things in writing and proper amendments. But not strictly legal advice. But I've never actually had a problem with an ongoing negotiation that ended up being past the 10-day cooling off period where people, wanted to walk away and then the builder didn't. That's just bad faith. So generally it's not a problem. But technically, don't do that.
Yes. No, I've seen a lot of builders that I worked with. They're very open-minded. They are willing to work with the buyers to make sure the transaction is smooth and not stressful. So they are in the process of having that relationship built with them as well. Because as I mentioned, it's not like a resale that you're closing in a few months or a couple of weeks. It's a pre-construction. It's a relationship that you're going to have with them for a couple of years.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of the relationship. You didn't get to the end and you're screaming because you didn't get the countertop that you wanted, and they're annoyed and you're angry that they didn't paint the wall or whatever. At the beginning, everybody's friends, so that's the time to ask for things.
Yeah. Most definitely. And a lot of people are excited because the fact that they get to choose everything. And that's the interesting part about pre-construction, because basically not only that you're choosing the location and you're seeing it being built within your eyes, but you also get to design and take the aspect of it. And as you mentioned before, it all comes into play what's in the paper, right? So let's talk a little bit about occupancy and assignments. What have you seen in the recent past when it comes to assignments and occupancies?
Okay, well, one at a time. First of all, occupancy, for those of you who don't know, is the time when the building is ready to be moved into, like they have their occupancy permit from the city, so the city thinks the building is fine, but they haven't registered the condo declaration yet. So they haven't turned it over to all the new owners. It's still owned by the builder. In that period, they let everybody move in, or some people, they do it in stages, depends on the building. And during that time, you'll pay kind of like a phantom mortgage rent, which is going to be a combination of interest on the balance that you owe the builder at the prescribed Condo Act rate. It'll be the current condo fees, and the idea is it's supposed to reflect your actual costs of ownership. In reality, you know, the prescribed interest rate is usually more than you can get with the bank. You always have the option of paying the balance to the builder, you know, within certain time periods, depending on what the agreement says, in which case you would get a lower occupancy fee. So that's occupancy. And just to warn everybody, the state of completion that allows for occupancy is usually very disappointing for people. It's often the elevators aren't all, you know, working, the hallways aren't painted, things like that. Like it's literally, depending on the builder, bare bones.
The construction is still on in certain areas of the building, right?
The pool won't be ready, the fitness center won't be ready, which is really annoying to a lot of people who just want to move into their brand new condo, or even rent it out, right? You can't get a good tenant during that period.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's, you know, just something to keep in mind. It's part of those unknown things that you don't think of when you're signing the contract, but then when the time comes, it's really annoying.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, you know, I had the experience. I have bought a couple of pre-construction homes myself, and when it comes to the time of renting, like, you know, the tenants has to bear the noise for some time because they're still doing some work. As you mentioned, the pool and the amenities are still not done, so they need to bear that for some time till the building get completely done.
Exactly, and you know, one of the things we didn't mention at the beginning, but it's worth mentioning now, is along with assignments, is also being able to rent out the unit during occupancy. The default is you're not allowed. So if you want to, you need to make sure that that's in the agreement, and that the terms and conditions of how you're allowed to rent it out, how you're allowed to advertise these things for rent, all that has to be in the agreement. That's your intention. So definitely be mindful of that.
Yeah, that's very important, especially if you're purchasing this as an investment property. Having that in your paperwork is very important. So you don't have to pay that occupancy fee by hand, but you can get the tenants to actually, you know, pay that for you.
And watch it. Sometimes they put a fee that's like $20,000 to rent it out during occupancy, and you're thinking, oh, it's occupancy 6 months. Am I going to make that back in rent? And then, you know, so but people do that math.
Yes,
right?
I have seen that, like, you know, not in the recent past, because right now you can see a lot of builders are giving that free lease during occupancy. But just make sure that is in your agreement of purchase and sale, not only in the marketing material. In other words, So assignments is it's a big topic these days when it comes to pre-construction. A lot of people who bought couple of years ago or like a year ago, due to interest rate and many factors, they are thinking of maybe getting it assigned because they're not in a position to close it at this time, in other words, right? So when it comes to assignment, what are the key factors in the agreement of purchase and sale they should be aware about, and also in the process what they should be mindful of?
Okay, so I mean, we spoke about getting the amendments that allow it, and you know, making sure there's no fees or whatever. I would say the most important thing to understand when you're assigning is that you're not off the hook. So even if you have found somebody to buy that contract off of you, you're still joint and severally liable to close. So if that buyer, ultimate buyer, doesn't close, the builder's coming after you. And so that's why it's very important to you know, get a big deposit from that person. Make sure that you're safe, and that you have a lawyer review the assignment agreement. A lot of agents don't do a lot of assignments. Some do a lot of assignments, but just because you had a buyer's agent who helped you buy the pre-construction doesn't mean that they know how to do the assignment. So it's very important to go to a lawyer who does, like, we see all the assignments, right? And so we have a little bit more, I think, experience to advise on those contracts. And so like those key elements in there are like a big deposit. When the deposit gets released, those are very important factors in an assignment. Also important is how you assign. Usually, I'd say almost always, they don't really allow you to just advertise the assignment. You can't just post it on Realtor.ca or on Kijiji or whatever. And so that leaves you selling it kind of like on the agent's network.
That's true.
So it's important to know that you're not necessarily guaranteed to assign it. And not least of which now, people are assigning things for less than they bought them for. So that's a whole other situation now.
Yes, in the current market, that's true. Yeah.
Right, where the assigners are paying the ultimate buyer to close their deal for them, right? Yes.
No, that's happening right now. But hopefully that will change. We know with what we are seeing in the recent past happening with the changes and so forth. So let's hope for the best, because we know like it's there's definitely a gap when it comes to the housing market that the federal government is trying to now bridge and get everybody motivated about investing into new builds and pre-construction. So let's hope that will actually fill out, and hopefully that will change in the near future.
I mean, unless you're buying off an assignment, you probably get a good deal now.
That's true. When it comes to assignments, that was one of the main, I would say, challenges for the new buyer, because they need to come up with that big deposit or the down payment to make sure that the seller is comfortable too. As you mentioned, because to protect the seller, they need to have that big deposit. Not all buyers have that right now, especially, right? So that's kind of a challenge for realtors in finding that perfect buyer for the right assignment, especially given the fact that we're not able to advertise it everywhere. So it has to go through the networking and making sure it is out there for people to see.
Yeah, I will say though, there are some agents who've made it their specialty to do assignments.
Yes,
and they tend to have very big networks.
That's true. That's true.
And that's not to say that you have to use them, but your agent might know them and be able to spread the word like that.
So finally, but just to continue the conversation, let's talk about the end game, the closing of the pre-construction. What are some of the challenges that you have seen the buyers faces, or like some topics that they should be aware about when it comes to closing and what to expect?
Yeah, so that's often a very disappointing part of the process for people, and frustrating for me as a lawyer, because we're always the bearer of bad news, and not necessarily the cause, but we take the brunt of it. So often closing will happen very quickly, faster than you're ready for. I've seen people go from occupancy to final closing in a day, and they say, well, why don't you have your mortgage ready? Well, of course we don't have your mortgage ready,
Yes.
But some builders are just a little bit brutal like that. Again, highlighting that you have to choose a good builder.
Yes.
But all to say, you want to be ready, especially once you've gone into occupancy, to be ready with your financing to close at any time. So if you have to get your approvals updated and things like that, definitely do so. And then there's all the surprises that happen on closing. If you haven't capped all of those fees, you get all these charges for park levies and development charges and things like that. And that could add up very quickly and be very costly.
That's true.
And one of the biggest surprises I find that I like to warn people of when they sign their contract even is the condo fees are not going to be what the builder promised. 100% of the time. They're estimating based on today's prices what the cost of running a condo they haven't built yet is going to be. They have no idea. And even though they write it in the agreement that they're going to be $200 a month or something like that, they aren't really obligated to deliver that.
I see.
And so people are very surprised how high the condo fees are at the beginning. And then they go up for the next 5 or 10 years drastically as the building figures out, oh, it's costing us a lot more, we're running a deficit. So that's a big surprise to people when they move in. And along with that is also the reserve fund. When you buy a pre-construction condo, there is zero reserve fund. The builder is obligated to kick in the first 3 months.
That's right.
They often pass that along to the buyers in the agreement, so the buyer has to kick in 3 months on closing, and then it's never enough. The engineers are going to say, well, you have a $100 million building here, and your contingency fund is a few $100,000. So you guys all have to contribute significant amounts every year for the next 10 years. Watch your condo fee skyrocket.
Yeah.
So just know that's something that will happen.
Yes. So that's good information that you share, because that is the unknown factor that you're expecting to face in a couple of years or in a year based on your closing date, right?
Yeah.
So, and preparing yourself, as you mentioned, financially and also the unknown, to get prepared and have a hopefully smooth closing. That's the goal towards the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you made $200,000 because the condo appreciated, then you don't care. But if you paid, something that's at market when you finally close,
yes,
those costs are really annoying to pay.
That's true. Like, I have seen a lot of examples, like in this year, like a lot of people who closed the condo mortgage, condo and got the ownership. They didn't close based on what they were expecting for the equity to be built up for, right?
Yep.
So that was a disappointment because of the market conditions. But hopefully, like based on history, it fluctuates. It goes up and it goes down, but it goes up again. So hopefully, like we'll hope in the future, market warms up a little bit.
To me, it makes no sense. You've got a housing crisis where not enough people have homes, and yet the condo market is at a standstill. If you have the people, and you have the units, it should, solve itself. But,
yes, no, I agree with you on that, because I probably believe that's what the federal government is now trending towards, because they want to make sure it's affordable for any generation, right? For an example, with the Boulder's mortgage reforms that came into play on December 15th, that was one of their goals, because they want to make sure it's more at reach for the young generations and Gen Zs. So hopefully, I think we are on the right path, but definitely there's more things needs to be done.
Yeah.
And it hopefully comes with time. But is there anything else, Joseph, that you would like to share when it comes to purchasing a pre-construction? Some maybe key pointers to keep top of mind.
No, I think we've mostly covered it. Just reach out to your friendly neighborhood lawyer and make sure that you get some advice.
Amazing. I hope that we answered most of your questions that you had when it comes to buying that pre-construction or the new built home. If you have any other questions, feel free to bring on to us. So we'll do our best to bring the experts like Joseph on this stage to answer your questions, to inspire and elevate our lives together. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for spending your time with us on the Stellar Talk Show. We hope you found value in today's episode and gained insights to help elevate your lifestyle. If you enjoyed the discussion, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who could benefit. It means the world to us. Until our next episode, stay inspired, and I'll see you soon on our next Stellar Talk Show.